What's going on Facebook? What's going on LinkedIn? What's going on YouTube? What's going on Twitch? Everybody, what's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to a bonus show. This is not a late night show or a morning show. It's a bonus show, which just means that we're doing it in the afternoon. We have a very exciting topic today. We're going to be talking about something that I've been pondering about. And one of my good friends is going to be on here, and she's also a therapist as well. And we've done a live stream before, but we're doing another one for you all. So before we start, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Kojo Sarfo. I'm streaming live to you from sunny Los Angeles, California. In fact, it might be a little too hot out here, but we're making it work. We're thugging out here and doing our best to help out people and bring positivity. So this is a little blubber by myself. And if you can use the comment section to let me know where you're checking in from, and then we'll get started. Kendra, what's going on? So Kendra is one of the moderators. She's checking in from Pennsylvania, and she just had a second kid. And because I know that about her, I just want to share so we can all congratulate Kendra on that. Crystal, hello, what's up, what's up? And Kiki Wolf saying that her and her best friends have been friends for over 20 years and consider each other family. So Kiki, we'll talk about that. We will talk about whether a single man and a married woman can be friends. You can even flip it around and say, can a married man and a single woman be friends? That could be different, but let's figure this out. So we have love from Turkey. We have love from Philadelphia. What's up? Paulette, what's going on? Quad Cities, Illinois, Iowa. I think IA is Iowa, right? Good afternoon from Florida. Clara, what's going on? I'll go back to work Monday, not ready. Kendra, that's the thing about when you take a break from work or when you're unemployed. After you're, away from work for too long, you're like, okay, that was the issue. That was what was cutting into my happiness. Canada in the house. Emily, how are you doing? Virginia in the house. And saying, are we saying a single man on dogs and can't be trusted around women even if they are married? I'm not saying that, but I do know some people say that. So we'll talk about that. It's 4 cities to 2 states. Okay. Illinois and Iowa. Awesome. Kwame, I'm streaming live, please. Appreciate you, bro. I told him, but it's funny because he was taking a test yesterday for school, and I was playing MLB and being loud. So it's probably just returning the favor. We got Paulette from Georgia. Okay, awesome. So like I said, I'm checking in from Los Angeles, California, and my guest is checking in from Arizona. So I'm going to let her come through and introduce herself. You all may be familiar with her, but I'm going to let her come through. This is one of my best friends out here. So this is Shani. Come on, Shani. Come on through. We can't hear you. Oh, I got to unmute you. Mickey Ficky, my bad.
There we go. Hi. Can everyone hear me okay? Testing.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, hello. It's so wonderful to be here and to meet everyone. My name is Shani Tran. I'm Shani. I hate when I have to start off with I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. We're just hanging out. So what are some fun facts about me? I love to dance. I would say I'm a very awkward person, but people may perceive me as very extroverted and friendly. But I'm actually quite awkward.
Hey, that's a great intro. And it's funny whenever people say, what do you do or whatever out here in LA? That's a popular question. I just say, I act or I do social media or whatever. And then people say, aren't you on TikTok? Aren't you a doctor? I'm like, yeah, you blew my cover or whatever. But, we're so much more than just that. But, that's an American thing where we kind of base our personalities around what we do.
Yes, totally.
It's not like that in Europe. Speaking of Europe, my aunt is in the stream. Hey, Auntie, how are you doing? Greetings from London. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been for a wedding, so I'll be
okay. Well, you're my auntie now too. Hi.
Auntie Ivy. Yeah, that's my mom's younger sister. One of her favorite quotes is, "Life is hard. Don't make it harder." I think about that all the time.
Ooh.
Life is hard. Don't make it harder.
I like that one.
Yeah. Speaking of trying not to make life hard, you want to talk a little bit about how we came up with this topic from your perspective?
We're starting it off. We're going right into the sauce. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think we both know that the topic, it kind of stemmed from what happened when I arrived in town from VidCon.
Right. Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, like we have this friendship going on and like I trust you, right? And we'll get into like why that trust is so important when we talk about what happened when I arrived in town for VidCon. And it was something that I remember that you were kind of like beating yourself up about. And I was like, it's cool. Like it's all good. Like I trust you. And as I was thinking about us going live, I was like, okay, so what can we like name this topic? Because something that I often get when I'm talking to like my friends about like traveling, they're like, oh, my husband would never let me do that. Or, oh, I would never let my wife do that. Or I would never let my husband do that. Like, that's totally not okay and inappropriate. And so I was actually talking to my husband about it. And I was like, you know what? Do you actually care? Like, I mean, my husband's so like go rah rah for me. And I was like, does this actually bother you? I mean, you've never given me the indication, but from what I'm hearing from other people, I just want to like really check in. And he was like, no, it's never bothered me because I trust you. And that was really important to me because my husband, and not to like tell his story, but he was in a 6-year relationship prior to dating me where he was cheated on. And so, knowing that going into our relationship, it was very important for me to make sure that I maintained that trust in all capacity because I want to be able to live my life authentically. And my husband knew from dating, I was that chick in college. As he would say, he would not let me into the party because he's like, you brought the sausages with you. I was like, yes, I was that chick roll up at a party and it's all dudes, me and all my dude friends. And he's like, nah, the ratio for the party, you make it off. So you would not have been allowed in. And so it's just something that he's always known about me. I mean, I was a tomboy growing up. I just always had guy friends. And I think for us, the challenge was once we were married, and obviously I'm someone that I'm very outgoing and I love meeting new people. So what did that look like when I started making new guy friends? And for him, it was really like, I trust you. And just knowing that, like, you're going to pick people in your life to be your friend, that I trust the decisions that you're making. So I think that's kind of my way of coming up with the topic. And yeah, what are your thoughts, Gojo?
There's so much there. Let me click some of the comments here, and I have a lot to say. There's a lot to unpack there. And someone said, "Must say your stream over Facebook instead of Twitch." Rachel, I'll keep that in mind. Chris from Tennessee, what's going on? Claire said, "You being awkward is awesome. I'm awkward as well." And Claire says, "My husband always says that he knew who I was going home to at the end of the day." I like that.
Yeah.
Chrissy said, "I have a best friend who's a guy, and I'm with someone, been with the same guy for 11 years almost. I've known my friend for 13 years. Okay, that's awesome. And at least for me, so let's go back to the VidCon story, right? So let me tell you all what happened. So I knew Shani was coming to town for VidCon, which is a social media event that we have. It happens once a year. And she invited me to VidCon last year as her +1, so I got to go. And because I didn't get invited by VidCon, which is a different story. But either way, because of Shani, I was able to go to VidCon, and I was very grateful for that. So year 2 rolls around, and at this point, I've already moved, right? And I remember when I moved, I did it so quick because I literally moved on a Sunday. I had to hire 2 housekeepers, extra cleaners, everybody, because I had to film a video for CBS the next day on Monday. So everything happened so fast. So, I filmed the CBS video, boom, boom, boom. We roll around to the day before VidCon, right? And I forget that I never texted her the new address. And also, like, I should text her the new address and the gate code and everything to get in. But I didn't do this when I was at the gym, just talking and laughing. I spent 2-3 hours at the gym because this is what I do. And I thought to myself, I was feeling bad because I'm like, oh, my ADHD affects me every single day. But on this particular day, because I just forgot to let her know that I moved. She went to the old address and she was there for like a good 30 minutes, maybe an hour or something like that, just waiting outside, and I was like, damn, like all I had to do was just text her. And I thought to text her, but ADHD, when you have a thought and you don't act on it, it's as if it never crossed your mind, So I was like, I feel bad about that. And I said I would share this story on live and we can clip this and post it. But that made me just think about, all right, when you have this condition, yeah, take your meds or whatever, but how can you minimize the damage to other people, especially a close friend of mine, you know? And we talked about it and then we chopped it up and she said, oh, it's all good, right? And then, you know, we're talking about this. And I think at some point during the trip, we had this discussion about whether a single man or whether men and women can be friends or the dynamic of it. And going back to what you were saying earlier, it's funny because I remember growing up, my mom, you know, I love my mom, you know, and my mom, she has the best intentions, but she would always say, she would tell me that she said, Kojo, don't be in a room with a woman that's not your wife for more than 5 minutes. That's
Mm,
what I heard growing up. Do
yeah.
not be in a room with a woman that's not your wife for more than 5 minutes. And then, you know, I was such a smart kid. You know, I would tell my mom, "Well, if I never get married, I'm just gonna not be in rooms with women or whatever."
Yeah.
But she was pretty much saying that the best way to never have any issues is just to avoid it altogether. Just avoid it altogether. If you're with a lady or whatever, be there with other people. And there is some truth to that. Like, you know, we talk about allegations and all kinds of stuff, and I'm aware of that, you know, living
Yeah.
here in LA and having my business and trying to, you know, not get in the news for the wrong reason. But I never really even thought about having genuine friendships with the opposite sex because whenever I was friends with somebody of the opposite sex for too long, something would happen. You know, and somebody saying your mom was right. Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to what she was saying, but I never could just have a platonic relationship. Like it just never stayed there. Something would happen, or you know, or like you know, or maybe it'd be my fault. Like I'd be watching a movie and I'm like, "Do you really want to watch this movie?" You know, like, or you would do something else. But like, it never clicked in my mind that you could be just friends with somebody like we are, just straight friends. And there's also a Steve Harvey clip
Mm,
where he says that he doesn't have any friends who are female. Now Steve Harvey is married, so you know respect to his
yeah.
situation. But he said he doesn't have any friends that are women, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily because everybody's on their own journey. So if you
Yeah.
know you're not in a place where your boundaries are good enough to where you can keep things straight and keep things you know uncomplicated, it might be best to just kind of you know be where you are and work on things your own way. But it really made me think because on this social media journey, I've become friends with women, and it sounds kind of weird to say, like you know, as a therapist or whatever, that you would have these issues, but I never really had friends of the opposite sex because I just never knew what to talk about. I'm like, well, what do we talk about? Like, you know, the Barbie movie, or but as we grow up, it's there's so many different layers to it, and it's even cool hearing your husband's side because, like, if I'm friends with somebody, and you're out of town, right? But if I'm friends with somebody of opposite sex, right? And I think back to when I went to a classmate's house for acting class, right? We're
Mm,
working on a scene, and she said her husband will be home soon, and I was so relieved because I was like, all right, if your husband will be home soon, I would love to like just meet him and shake his hand and just
yeah.
let what side I'm on. Like I'm like, hey, I'm here. Like I'm a classmate. I
Yep.
don't have any issues. Like you know, like I'm not like I'm here. Like I'm just here to you know not start anything. You know, so it's cool hearing how things are on your side. You know, and I just really
Yeah.
respect you, and I even appreciate you for coming on to talk about this. And this is why, like, I will stop my day in the middle of the day to talk about this because I don't see people talking about whether this is a thing. You know.
And the interesting so going back to the story of, like, what happened with VidCon, I remember it because I I pull up to your old house, and I was like, "Wow, Kojo's curtains are never open." It's like I can see inside the house, but it's on a hill, so I can't see inside. I was like, "But I don't see the couch in the window." I was like,
Yeah.
It's quite barren." And, like, the interesting part is, like, my brain didn't go to, like, some sort of like, "Oh my gosh, I've been set up, like, how could this happen?" I literally was just like, "Let me text and see if he's home." And then, like, you didn't respond right away, and I was like, "That's cool." I was like, "He's probably busy doing something. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna make some TikToks. Like, this is like a great downtime to make some TikToks." And then I remember you responded and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't give you the new address. Like, I will come get you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I remember like you were just like beating yourself up about it around like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to give you the address." And that's why I think the trust is like so important, is because as a human, we can't expect people to like not make mistakes.
Right.
And then also, I'm very well aware that you have ADHD. And I feel like if I would have been like, oh my God, how could you have forgotten me? Like, I'm your friend. Like, that wouldn't have done anything for our relationship. And to be honest, it was daylight. So I felt safe. The area that you lived in, I just like sat on the sidewalk, made some TikToks, looked like, you know, a kid whose parent forgot to pick them up from school.
That's a
Um,
list.
and I was just like, it's okay. Like things happen. I felt safe. I wasn't in danger. And I think that that's an important part of the story too, is because, you know, for some people we can be unforgiving in situations. And then I even remember at VidCon at one point, because I remember throughout the, you know, our time there, you're like, man, yeah, I can't believe I forgot to give you the address. And I was like, I forgive you. You got to forgive yourself now.
Yeah, and it's just like you. It's something that it's kind of like when you think about it. I'm like, oh, I probably should do this. And I remember that week was a very busy week, and I had a lot of things to do. I had to find a dog sitter. The dog sitter bailed on me, all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
So I told myself, I'm like, all right, I may not get everything done, but there's a couple of things that I need to get done. And I pride myself on prioritizing friendships and things like that. So I just dropped the ball. But like you said, it is hard to forgive yourself. But it's good knowing that when you have that friendship in place, you trust somebody and you don't go into like, oh, they set me up, which is an LA thing. And like living,
Yeah.
like that's a very common thing. Like in LA, you can really go hang out with somebody and meet up next week to talk business and never hear from them again.
Yes, I've had that happen to me when I've come to LA, as you may know.
That's
Um,
an LA thing.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think that when we started talking about our friendship, because I remember that how the conversation came up was, oh, you were dropping me off at the airport. We were coming back from VidCon, which I think is like an hour and 45 minutes from your house. And I remember I really wanted to try Kevin Hart's new restaurant. And I was like, I want to try it, but you're like, that's cool. I'll take you on the way to the airport. And I remember feeling like so kind of like nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, you've already done so much for me. But like one of my things that I'm working on for myself is being able to receive. And then
Yeah.
the reverse happened when we got to the airport and I was like, pull over at this gas station right here. I'm going to fill up your tank. And you were like, oh, and I think that's how we started having that conversation around like being friends with like a girl. You're like, oh yeah, you're offering to like put gas in my tank. And I'm like, I'm working on receiving. And I was like, receive this. I am filling up your tank. This is my thank you.
And I appreciate that. And as somebody who is hard for me to accept help, you know, I was like, my first thought was like, oh, I'm good. I'll get gas. But then I'm like, hold up. It probably makes you feel better to help. And it will help because it's free gas or to me. So I'm like, hold up. I'll take this because this is like an exercise in learning how to accept things. You know, and also like when you think of it at a deeper level, sometimes I think to myself, and I look back at past relationships and I'm like, there were times that, you know, I was dating somebody that was like my full-on girlfriend, and our friendship was not as strong as the friendships I've cultivated with women outside of actual relationship. So it's made me question a lot and just really rethink a lot of things. I'm like, that element, that component of friendship is something that we should all practice.
Oh, I definitely think so. And, you know, so I guess like while we're talking about this, should we talk about like how we even started like hanging out and meeting? Because I think that it
Yes,
literally was on the internet. And I think you were coming into town. I was like, hey, let's meet up. You're coming
Arizona.
to Arizona.
Yeah. I remember. Okay, all right, so I came to Arizona, and I think the first time I came, I think I came with somebody, right?
There wasn't anyone with us though. Oh, wait, maybe they met the guy met us later, like came down to the lobby later because you were staying in a hotel and you came to the lobby later, or he
Right.
did. It was like a podcast person.
Podcast person?
Yeah, I don't remember their name. I'm sorry.
No. The very first time I came to Arizona, I remember I came with a girl I was talking to at the time.
Oh no, there was no girl.
No, but this is the first time that I came down.
Oh, gotcha.
I came down, we didn't hang out, but I came with a girl I was talking with at the time, right? We got invited by the Diamondbacks to come out to a baseball game. So I got the invite from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we fly out to Phoenix, and then I think you reached out, and I'm like, oh, I'm in town, but I gotta go, but I'll be back. And that's second time I came back to that same hotel, and then that's the first time that we met.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I think from there, it felt so easy and it just clicked. I think that it was a lot of like two Black people being in the space. I remember feeling very I don't know what's the word, but it's almost like belong. Like I felt like I belonged in that conversation with you because we talked about being mental health professionals on social media, and just how that impacted us, what it was like being Black in social media, what it was like being Black in mental health, and then being Black in mental health on social media. And like having that conversation, I remember I was just like, oh, he's a vibe. Like this is gonna become my like homie eventually. And then I think I came into town for I had like an interview with like NBC, maybe that was the first
Yeah.
one.
I remember
I
NBC.
think, and you were like, stay at my house. And I was like, free lodging? Yes, bet in LA. And I remember telling my husband, because my husband's never met you. My husband's never even talked to you. And I remember I told my husband, I was like, yeah, you remember Kojo, who I met? And now I'm saying this out loud, and I'm like, oh wow. Remember Kojo, who I met at the hotel in Arizona? I'm staying at his house when I go to NBC.
That's funny.
And I remember it was just, you were so accommodating. And I remember it even shocked me, like how accommodating you were as a male to having me stay at your house. You're like, okay, I'm gonna have the house cleaner come a couple of days before I came. You're like, hey, do you need like any groceries or is there anything? And I was like, my girlfriends don't even ask me these questions. Do I need any groceries? And as a tourist, I was like, I'm living my best life right now. If someone's asking me about the food I want, like that's the way to my heart. And then I remember like I arrived to your house because I'd never been to your house either. And I was like, oh wow, like I have, it sounds so weird to say. I was like, oh, I have like my own room and my own bathroom. And then I remember I was like, oh yeah, he's the guy. Because at the time I think you were reinstalling blinds in the
Yeah, that's what we put the
bathroom. And
yeah.
I was like, it's okay. I got nice boobs. Not that you were gonna see them, but your house like faced like a hill. And I was like,
Right.
oh well, I
So,
guess when I get out of the shower.
nobody would have saw it though. But still, I was like, yeah, the ladies coming over. We have to like make sure the place is
Yep.
presentable. Like.
And you put them up like I think the next day.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's funny because especially I think the social media component is key because, like I live in Los Angeles, but I'm from the South. I'm also from Ghana originally, so we pride ourselves on that hospitable nature of how we are,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it was growing up. Anytime like people were coming over, like our parents made sure that they're clean, and this is also that I learned as a kid. So like that's just what we do, and then also like being in this social media space. Libby, what's up? Long time no see. What's up, Libby? Being in this social media space is, how it is, right?
Yeah.
Like to be a Dr. Coder or to be a Shine, uh, the therapist, you get all these DMs all the time from people, and like you never really are seen for who you are, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like when somebody can see you for who you are, and like throw away the therapist, throw away all that stuff, and just kind of support you, and also somebody who understands what you're going through. Because as we go up higher and higher, the things that we're doing, whether it's the Today Show or going to New York or the White House or writing a book, it's not relatable to a lot of people. So sometimes you feel isolated. So when you do connect to people, you build those deeper friendships. And to me, I tell myself all the time, all right, I want to protect these friendships, and it's so backwards to me because in relationships, I've never been that like gung ho
Mm,
about protecting it.
yeah.
I protect it, but not like
Yeah.
actively.
Yeah.
But, like with a friendship, like you or like my homeboy Frank who does comedy, who's crashing here now, or my homeboy Greg back in Georgia. Like I go out of my way to make sure I don't do wrong by a friend.
Mhm.
So like the more I think about it, I'm like friendship is such a key component.
In a
And I'm grateful
relationship.
for you, and I'm learning a lot from this. And it's funny because people look at us as, oh, like we're teaching people about all this stuff, but like I'm learning a lot just as I go. I'm learning something.
Mhm. And I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you said in the beginning of the live where you're like, "Oh, what would we talk about?" Anytime that I visited you, I've always been excited about our conversations.
Yeah.
We have such great conversation, and I wonder if for you, like, as you're talking about relationships, maybe it is that friendship piece that would help along in the relationship, because if you think about it, we've never actually, like, watched TV when I'm there. Like, majority of the time, it's us having,
Mm,
like, great
yeah.
conversations, and I think the other piece to that too is,
Oh.
um I also like, even though you're very, like, kind of attentive to me when I'm there, I'm also, like, independent in a way where I'm like, "No, it's okay, like, I can Uber here, like, I can Uber there, it's
Mhm.
totally cool," and you'll be like, "No, I'll take you, it's cool," and I'm like, "No, I got it, like, I can do that," and I feel like in our relationship, like, we find ways to give to each other. Like, I remember the first time that I stayed with you, I was like, "Okay, I'm staying at this man's house, how can I pay him back?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna walk his dog when I wake up in the morning." So I remember I like walked Zoe for you. And then like after I
Yeah.
made like dinner, I like cleaned up the kitchen, like you and the boys were up. I think it was like your roommate and I think maybe someone else was in town. Like y'all had pizza and y'all were just like hanging out at night. And I remember I like got up and like cleaned the countertops a little bit. And it's just like I think the parts of our relationship that build on that trust is like we have different ways of like giving to each other. Like even at VidCon, when there was a point where you couldn't get into a hotel, and I was like, no, I'm emailing Instagram right now. I'm emailing the contact. And you're like, it's good. I was like, absolutely not.
I was done. I was like, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me go to the comments real quick. So Libby said y'all together. No,
No.
this is a friend. She's a married woman, so
Yeah.
I don't want any smoke. But Libby just hopped in, so she doesn't know because she doesn't watch TV on week.
Oh.
Uh, we also communicate very early in a relationship by having friends of the opposite sex, and it really helps us feel okay. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes we feel insecure, but we talk about it, and it helps us. Actually, so Crystal was saying this, and she said it right here again. Um, actually, I have a question for you on that.
Mhm.
How, as someone who's married, how do you all even start these conversations? Because in the past, for me, if I was, and this, let's say this is the reverse, and I
Yeah.
had a girlfriend, I'm thinking back to past girlfriends. I'm not going to mention anybody specifically, but I can
Yeah.
think of some women that it would be an issue with. Libby, you're good, no worries.
Yeah, it's all good.
I can think of some women that it'd be an issue with if I say, "Oh, I'm going to Arizona, and I'm going to
Mm,
Shawnee." You know,
yeah. The interesting thing about it is one of the things that I try to be mindful of and I'll answer that question, but I wanted to say is that's actually a big fear of mine because you mean so much to me as my friend of like, when you enter into a relationship, what if the person that you enter into a relationship with isn't okay with this friendship? But then I also tell myself that I have to trust that you got that. Does that like make sense? Like you will handle that on your part, but like I also know that like love is like the big thing here, right? And so like that's one of my biggest fears is like when you find someone, what if that person isn't okay and you have to be like, Shauna, like this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. That actually makes me a little bit sad thinking about it, but I think about that like
fear not. It's gonna be a while. I'm gonna be chilling. I'm gonna be chilling by myself for a minute. But I mean, it does beg the question because, and I think for whatever reason, I feel like it being this way, you being married and us being
yeah.
friends, and meeting through TikTok and doing the same thing, and both being public figures. I think it works easier. I know there's gender roles and all that stereotypes, respect to whatever people believe, but I feel like it works easier this way than the opposite way for whatever reason. Because I've thought about that many times, like, and I've thought about this specifically. Tell myself, all right, if I get a girlfriend,
Hmm.
and I'm like I have my what I prefer. So I'm like, all right, I would like to have a girl where she's not like, oh, you gotta post me on social media because I'm like, let's just be to ourselves and enjoy
Yeah.
our life. But I've wondered how like a significant other would impact my brand and my business and my friendships.
Yeah.
Because I'm finally at the point where I've had too many experiences to where I'm like, okay, I can create this boundary, and like I'm not sitting there when you're coming over like scheming on you, like, you know,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
like we have those boundaries. So it will be difficult. I do think that if we're being realistic, it might be a little difficult to explain to a woman and say, hey,
Yeah.
my friend. She's like, I've known her since Boom Boom. She is married, she has kids and all that stuff, but like, she comes and stays with me when she's in town. As
Yeah.
opposed to like Frankie, he's a comedian, he's here in town. Like if
Yeah.
I'm dating somebody and she's like, oh, Frankie's over, whatever. But
Mhm.
it'll be a little different if there's a married woman over, for obvious reasons.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, I,
But
I don't know
here's
how
the
to
thing
come
that
across.
that here's the thing that I think when people think about a man and a woman, a married woman and a single man, or even a married man and a single woman having a platonic relationship. As someone who's bisexual, if you and has queer friends, lesbians don't be like, you can't hang out with other women.
I never looked at it from that perspective.
Gay men don't be like, you can't hang out with other men. So I think that it's just this like heteronormative like
Yeah,
thing that we've created. Like here's my saying that I've always believed in. If someone is going to cheat on you, they are going to cheat on you.
I believe that straight up.
If they are going like they're telling someone they can't have friends of the opposite sex does not prevent someone from cheating on you. Because if someone wants to cheat on you, they're going to find a way to do it. And so like when it comes to like the relationship with my husband, it's just something that I think he just always the way that I talk because we worked together. So I wouldn't say we were friends. He actually thought I was very annoying. Um, 'cause but like he was very much aware that like I had a lot of guy friends. And when we got together, I remember the first friend that I ever went to see, we were married at the time. And it was like a long friend. I lived in Sicily when I was younger, and I was like, hey, I haven't seen my friend Patrick in like years since like 7th grade. And so I want to go visit him in DC for like a couple of days. And without skipping a beat, he was like, "Cool." And so if I'm being honest, I think that we've never really like had the conversation around like this is what it looks like, boom boom boom. Just whenever it comes up, we like talk about it because my husband is actually friends with a girl that I used to work with that I didn't really get along with. She didn't like me. And till this day, they still are friends. And I've never felt threatened by her at all. And when he goes back to Wisconsin, he like hangs out with her. And it's just never something that I've felt threatened by because I feel like, in my opinion, it goes back to if someone wants to cheat on you, they're going to cheat on you. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It can be someone at work. Because if I'm being honest, I remember there was a guy that I was like, not dating, but we were just kind of having relations with at work. And he was like, yeah, I'm currently like out of the relationship. And I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, but I can't like hang out because I got a kid. And so like literally we would have our relations on the lunch break. So like literally we would both take lunch at the same time and we would go to my house. And then I remember
Yeah, that's
his
a next level work husband.
and so it was like this thing of like I remember he was like, "Yeah, my baby mama's not happy with this," and I was like, "Wait, are you in a relationship?" I was like, "Oh, is that why we do it that much?" I was like, "Okay, hold on, I feel completely played." I see what's
Okay.
happening now, and I was like, "I don't know her side of the story. I only know his side of the story." But I tell that story because I believe that if someone's going to cheat on you, they're going to cheat on you. Now, I hear people saying like temptation, blah, 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 and not to like discredit it by saying blah, 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 but like temptation and not putting yourself in those situations. I think the reality of it is like we're all human and we all have eyes. I know that everyone is different and how they navigate that, but I think it comes back to like self control and being able to control yourself because I can't lock myself in a room and not be around men or women. I'm
Yeah.
bisexual. I'm going to have to figure out how to interact. And I think that's the same with like mental illness, right? Like when you
Mhm.
find out you have ADHD or depression, you can't run from it. You have to figure out like how do I work with what I've been diagnosed with?
Mhm.
Like it doesn't define who I am, but I have to figure out how to navigate that. And I feel like it's the same thing in the world today of like, okay, I like guy friends. my husband has girlfriends. We have to figure out, like, if you are tempted, and I'm not gonna lie, there have been times where I've been in rooms and I'm like, oh my gosh, that girl looks so good, or oh my gosh, that man looks so hot. And I'm like, okay, I'm aware that that's what I'm thinking. So I need to be mindful of how I interact with this person.
And that's next level. And do you even get to bring that up to your significant other? Because on my end, like I see Libby's comment, and I'm trying to be optimistic. Like I'm telling myself that okay, like I run
Yeah.
my life. If I bring a woman into my life, like how should
Yeah.
that and derail everything? Like I'll express how I feel and see if she's okay with that, and I want to hear what she wants as well. But this comment resonated with me because I feel like this is my guess. But let's say I get a girlfriend next week, right?
Mm,
I feel like this is exactly how she would feel. She'd be like, "Oh, you can be
yeah.
friends, but not stay the night." But at the same time, I don't know if it makes me a bad person. I'll let Libby and you answer this question. But does it make
Yeah.
me a bad person if I go back and forth with my girlfriend and say, "Hey, this is a friend of mine. I would like for them to stay." Does that make you a bad person?
I don't think that makes you a bad person, because I think it goes back to what is the hetero norm here? Because again, if lesbians are hanging out, you're not going to say you can't have like a girl come over. But I get what you're saying about stay the night, because it's a matter of asking your girlfriend, okay, what is it that you don't trust that this person can't stay the night? And she might say, I've never met her. Great, let's let you meet Shawnee. And I think for me, it's also a matter of I can see the picture, right? Like I'm thinking, what's the picture here? But I think it's also being able to see the relationship that we have. Because if you can see us interact, you'd be like, oh yeah, there's nothing there. Like they are definitely they're more brother and sister than they actually
Right.
are like on that sort of like level. And it's like Shawnee has also been staying at my house. And so when I think about that, I think about the relationship that I have with my husband. The reason why I will not cheat on my husband, and I'm going to be completely raw honest, I have no problem being vulnerable.
That's what we want.
I have had conversations with my husband. I remember it was like year 3 of our marriage, and I was like, I feel like I'm getting this urge to like cheat on you. Like I feel like I want to be with other men. And he was like, let's talk about it. Like, what do you think that's coming from? Like, what is it, something I'm doing? Is it your needs? Is it something that I can't fix? And so for me, I can't break that trust with my husband, because if I break that trust with my husband, I won't be able to live my life authentically, because I do have guy friends that I like to go visit, girlfriends that I do like to go visit, because I'm bisexual. So I feel like if my husband doesn't trust me visiting my guy friends, he also shouldn't trust me visiting my girlfriends. And so because of that, the trust with my husband is so sacred. Like it honestly, don't get me wrong, I fantasize about like people that I may have a crush on, but I can't cross that threshold, because this trust has been built on 11 years. And I would hate for my husband to start rethinking, okay, so when she went and visited Kojo, when she went and visited Justin, when she went and visited Patrick, was like, I don't want to make him think that. So when it comes to your girlfriend, I would say it's a matter of y'all are going to have to build that trust so that you get there. It's not something that's just going to be given overnight. And so that might be, and that's me being your friend, where you might be like, hey, Shawnee, I'm building trust with my girlfriend right now. So maybe you can come out and like, you can meet her for the day and hang out and boom, boom, boom. But I just want to let you know, because I also don't want you to be unhappy and like not feel like you can sort of like work on those boundaries and that trust, because
Right.
I'm like, no, Kojo, I'm staying at your house. I don't know. Maybe you can get a casita. It's not attached to the house. I can stay in the casita.
It's funny. Looking at what the comments, you can just like a married couple have friends of opposite gender, just need to have boundaries and rules of one's just. I agree. And Libby says, I'd say it depends on the couple. What are the reasons she needs to spend the night? And this is so funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, like I'm running through past girlfriends, and I'm like, I'm trying to role play, and I'm thinking of, oh, would she have been okay with this? Would she have been okay with this? Would she have been okay with this? I can't think of a single ex girlfriend of mine who would have been okay with it. But at the same time, I wasn't the person I was back then that I am now, if that makes sense. Like having
Yeah.
a public platform, being Dr. Kojo. So back then, it would have been. I'm looking for a better word than suspicious, but it would have been a bit more suspicious because it's like, all right, like he doesn't have this platform. He works as a mental health provider at the psych hospital, and that's just his job. He's not
Hmm.
really out there, so he doesn't have many different friends. Because if like that's your if is a therapist at the hospital you work with, and she's staying the night, then it's like, why is your coworker staying the night? You know?
Yeah, I think for us the circumstances are different, and let me put a little bit more information behind that. So I live in Arizona, Kojo lives in LA. We met through social media. So oftentimes if I'm coming to his house, it's because I'm staying there while I'm working in some capacity in LA. Like the funny thing about it is I've never actually come into town specifically to hang with Kojo.
Right.
And we've actually had that conversation where I was like, you know what? I've never actually come into town with the intention of hanging out with you. Like, let's make this like a thing because also don't want you to think that I use you. I think that it's okay to
I don't think
sorry
that.
misuse you.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to put a little bit more. Our situation's a little bit different. So if
Yeah. No,
ever I
it
come
is.
into
Yeah.
town for LA, it's not like, hey Kojo, like let's hang out. It's more so like, hey Kojo, I'm working on this project. Is it okay would I stay with you? And I feel like the reason why that's important is because we're both social media content creators.
Right.
And a part of this job, sometimes I do a lot of traveling for free just to get my name out there. And with that, in a way, Kojo is helping me not having to rent a car, not having to get
Yeah.
lodging, having a place to stay, having my own room. And so that is why oftentimes I do stay at Kojo's house.
Yeah. And
And
I
you might be saying, "Do you have another friend in LA?" The funny thing about it is I actually don't. Most of LA is a big county that I'm learning, and so most of the other people that are girls that are my friends, they're like 50 minutes outside of LA. And
yeah.
so Kojo's place is very central, so that's why oftentimes I will stay there.
Right, and it's a very specific situation. And for me, let's say I do get a girlfriend next week or whatnot. I think at the end of the day, you have to protect your home or potential home, and you have to side with your person. But it's not even about whether, let's say, my girlfriend and I come to this resolution or not. That's not important. The most important thing is that she hears me and she understands where I'm coming from. Like the situation is different. Somebody lives in Arizona and I live in LA. LA is a big place. It's also very unsafe depending on where you're at. So if I'm in a safe
Yeah.
area, I'm like, all right, this is a safe area, safe neighborhood. You know how to get around. It logistically makes more sense. And if I'm putting myself in your husband's shoes, right? And I know Kojo and know who he is, and like I know what he's about. Then I'm like, okay, I see. I'd rather my wife stay with a friend who has a safe place. There's a system for which you can repeat this over and over. Because
Yeah.
LA, there's many events. You come to LA multiple times a year. So think about all the money that you can save. That's why I tell my friends,
Yeah.
hey, if you come in town, like, and I'm here, like, come, let's crash. Of course, this will change. Let's say if I have a wife and kids, like things change eventually. But like for the situation at hand, you have to make things work for how it is. So I think it's
Yeah.
to at least get that understanding from somebody to where they're like, all right, I see why he's wanting this to be like this. Whether
Yeah.
we decide on that or not, it is more so that understanding. Because sometimes when people hear like, oh, I want my friend to come and stay. Oh, who's your friend? Who is he? Oh,
Mhm.
it's not a dude, it's a girl. Then it's like, all right, the
Yeah.
first question that I'm gonna get in the real life scenario is like, how you slept with this woman before?
Yeah.
And then
And
you're
I
like,
think I
no.
wanted to comment on Libby's comment where it says, "But as a queer woman, I'm not trying to have sex with my girlfriends." Why is it the assumption? I get that that's from your experience, but why is it the assumption that because a male and a female are friends that that's what the male is trying to do? Because not all males are like that. And I've never gotten that feeling from Kojo at all. And I know that you're speaking from experience, and that's the reason why I tell people if you're ever like getting to know someone or you're trying to like you have a way of viewing the world, recognizing that the way that you view the world is from your perspective and from your experiences, and that your experiences are different from other people's experiences. Have I been friends with dudes who have wanted me. Absolutely. One of my best friends from high school, once we were in college, was like, "Hey, I want to let you know, like, I love you and I want to like be with you." And I
Wow.
remember I was like, "Oh man, I don't see you that way."
Um,
And for the longest time, we couldn't be friends because that was something that he had to work through. And then after he worked through that, we came back and we reconnected and we were good. I even met his girlfriend. His girlfriend was even aware that at one point he had a crush on me. And so I think that it's one of those things where understanding the context of other people's experiences is why they view the world that way, and knowing that just because a man and a woman are together, that's a very like almost hetero stereotype that they want to sleep together. When it's never crossed my mind like that for Kojo, because immediately I was like, this is someone that I don't have many people that look like me in the social media space and are doing things the way that Kojo is. And so that relationship is important to me, and I would never want to do anything to jeopardize that. And I
right.
might be a different person. When I'm friends with someone, I'm very intentional in how I want that friendship to look. And have I been friends with people that look good, both men and women? Absolutely. But I mean, people look good and that's okay, but that doesn't mean that I want something intimate from them. And even to a point that we said I love you to each other for the first time, Kojo.
No, and I've been doing that, and it's weird the first time, but then when I think about it, I'm like, oh no, I love my friends, I love her,
Yes.
I love her, Ashley. But once again, I haven't configured this for whenever I do
Yeah.
get into a relationship. And Libby, I don't think she was getting the
Oh,
present. She was just trying to explain.
yeah.
But even to Libby's point, the funny thing is, like, I know exactly how you feel, Shawnee, and I know from your perspective and knowing you, I'm like, all right, I get you 1,000%. But isn't it frustrating when you have to like you know how you feel, but you have to try and perceive how the world
Yes.
sees you? Because like what Libby's saying here, like once again, I I'm not in the queer community, so take whatever I
Yeah.
say with a grain of salt. I don't know. I'm still learning, but
Yeah.
I feel like the majority of people would probably agree with exactly what
Yep.
Libby said. So this is exactly what people, in my head, this is what they
Yeah.
think. So if this is what people think, but this is who I am, I know, I've seen this played out so many times.
Mhm.
What Libby's saying, like anytime, even when I was back at the hospital in Virginia, anytime I was around a nurse who was like remotely attractive, or any one of my female coworkers who the patients would be like, oh wow, she came in or whatever. Anytime I was around any one of these women, I know that if I hang around for too long, or if she's in my office for too long and she comes out, people are gonna be thinking, oh wow, is she in Dr. Sarko's office? I heard them laughing. I automatically
Mhm.
know that that's what they're thinking.
Yep.
So because that's what I know that they're thinking, I have to like act in a
Mhm.
certain way to where it's like, all right, I know they think this, but I need to figure out a way to be like, not that I'm trying to panic the situation, but it's like
Yeah.
a new way, like it's just business. But anytime you have two people who it looks like they could be together, that's where people's minds go. And when I left the job in Virginia, it's funny. I remember one of the ladies in HR. Um, she said that she said, "Oh, Kodo, I wish you the best wherever you go, and I'm so happy that you didn't sleep with any of the employees here." That's what she said. Because I came in as a
Oh,
young
wow.
guy, you know,
Yeah.
and people,
Yeah.
people really make you
Mhm.
fakey at your job. But like I knew that that's something that people were watching out for. To be like, all right, Kojo, and even with the skits I post, people are like, is he with that? Like I know
Oh,
people,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
people
just be like, "Get off my bed."
right. People be thinking like, what's going on? So I always try and keep that in mind. And Deacon, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. But yeah, it's just interesting because if we allow it to be okay for more people to be friends in a platonic way, you can
Yeah.
learn so much. Because like this was even done kind of unintentional. Like I never
Oh, yeah,
sought
yeah, same.
I never sought out friends of the opposite sex. just cause. But and even when I bring things to you that guys struggle with, even if you don't understand it, you will look at it from a perspective and say, I never saw it that way.
Yeah.
Whereas we automatically assume that if we bring up a guy issue to a woman, well, we shut down. Maybe our mother shut us down. Maybe our past romantic partner shut us down. So we just automatically see, lady, she's not gonna get it, and then we
Yeah.
just like, nah, we're not even gonna look into it, you know. But I think it's been an amazing learning experience for me, because like even as a therapist, right, even as mental health professionals, we still have so much to learn on our own. But I'm learning that if you just have a friendship, you can learn so much from somebody, and it doesn't always have to, be sexual or whatever.
Yep.
And like it's sad that we have to say that, but if we're just being realistic, a lot of times, but also, I've thought this to myself before. I've thought that if you hang out with somebody mindlessly and you don't like keep the
Mm.
boundaries, you'll get into trouble.
Yes.
I know that for a fact. I know from
Yeah.
personal experience. You know,
Yeah. Same.
because I've been
And
there
like
before.
one of those things, like, so for instance, when I stay at your house, like I feel like you're usually in your room when this happens, so you may not have actually noticed it. But like if I'm like showering and going from the bathroom to the room, I'm like putting on clothes. I don't have like a towel on. Like, and that's just like, I think you're usually in your room
Yeah.
probably too when I do that, but I do that like intentionally because like, not that I would think that you would look at me that way, but I wouldn't even want to like put you in that position. So like that goes back to like the mindlessly like hanging out with someone. Like I'm intentional in like the way that I present myself when I'm hanging out with you. Because here's the thing, when you get a girlfriend, the last thing I want you to be thinking about is, oh God, if Shawnee comes out the bathroom in a shower, my girl's gonna flip. Like I want you to know that like when I'm in your space, like I'm respecting present you, future you, past you, and like I would never do anything to like try to jeopardize that. And I think that that's important. And I wanted to also add like the like love you part. I remember, so it was very, this is like this is deep probably, but I remember when I like realized, I was like, oh my gosh, like I really do like care about Kojo in this way, like his life matters to me. So, and things may have changed, but this is what happened in my brain. There was a moment where I think you had told me the title or the tags on the car, one of the cars, you needed to update them. So I wasn't sure if that meant expired or just like it's that time. So when we were driving to VidCon, and there wasn't anything that you were doing, but I remember you were in the driver's seat and your brother was in the back seat. And I remember I have brothers, I have black brothers, but it's been a while since I've been in a car with like a black man, if I'm being honest, because my husband is Vietnamese. And so I remember when I was sitting in the car with you, I started thinking about your tags and I was like, holy crap, what if they're expired and we get pulled over? And I'm sitting and we're in the car. It's me, a black woman, and two black men. And I remember fearing for like you and your brother's lives in that moment because it's been such a long time since I've been in the car with like black men. And I remember feeling very like overwhelmed. And I was like, I don't want anything to happen to Kojo. I don't want anything to happen to him. Like I really do care. And I love him so much. And I remember like, oh, it makes me so sad. And I was just like, really, that's when I knew like I cared about you as a brother in that moment, because those were like the intrusive thoughts that I was having. And like I said, it wasn't that, I don't know if your tags were actually expired, but I remember that conversation.
They're expired. They're still expired.
Okay. And I remember I was just like, holy crap, I don't know what like I would do. And so when I got home, one of the things that I do is, my thing is like I like to write people like thank you cards. And I remember I was like, I think this might be like a easy way to like be like, I love you.
Yeah, and that our card meant a lot to me, because when you know how it is when you're doing this social media thing and as a public figure, it's tough to kind of decipher like who, like the people here I'm looking at on the Facebook live stream, Kendra, Jacqueline, Libby, like these are folks that I've seen from coming on live over and over. So we've built that relationship with them. So when I
Yeah.
see Libby Davidson, Kendra, or
Yeah.
Kobe, or the normal people who come on. I'm like, I trust these people, as much as I can trust them, and I love and I care for them. But it's really when you have like hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of followers, it's tough to figure out, like, do they like me? Like, are they really with me?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you send that letter, I'm like, oh, this person really cares for me, and I don't have to question that even 1%, and that does feel good, especially on this journey. And
Yeah.
LA, I love LA, but LA, it's a beast of a city, so it's kind of hard to even getting a ride to the airport in LA is kind of hard, because
Yeah.
everyone's like, I'm
Don't
very,
go to LAX. I always like to go to Burbank and get your tags updated. That
yeah,
makes me
no,
so nervous. Get your tags updated.
now I'm getting nervous too. I need to get the tags updated, but
We don't want to give, those people a reason to pull you over.
no, you're right. You're right. I'm gonna get updated by next week at the latest.
Yeah.
Y'all hold me to that. Let me get these tags updated next week at the latest,
Yeah.
and for both of my cars.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
also, Libby, just so that you're aware, I'm hoping that the way that I spoke about that comment didn't come off as defensive. I think I was just giving sort of like information to like perspective of like how when you're hanging out, and not you specifically, Libby, just like people in general, when we feel like we don't understand a situation, I always tell myself, if I'm like, why that person do that? I remind myself that the way that I'm viewing the situation is based on my life experiences and perspective. And I also try to humble myself too, like when I'm comparing myself, like say if someone like stole something, I'm like, why would you steal? I remind myself and humble myself to recognize that like I could easily be in that situation based on my circumstances. I don't understand that because those aren't my circumstances. And I know that this is like a different sort of like conversation in that way, but I like to remind myself that like we're all human in a way and we all have different experiences. Like no two black people are like I mean, there's studies out there on twins. How do twins grow up in the same household and end up being completely different based on
Mhm.
their perspectives? And so yeah, so I hope I wasn't taking it defensively. I can speak passionately though.
No, I don't see it. I didn't take it as it was
Okay.
defensive. I took it as it was good back and forth discourse, because I know exactly what you mean. And at the same time, I know what the general public sees,
Yeah.
when it comes to this, even so much to the point where like people, like I know people, Steve Harvey is one thing, but I know people specifically who avoid like opposite sex friendships. Uh,
Hmm.
but normally for them, issues that happened before in the relationship, maybe somebody stepped out or something like that, or they have
Yeah.
to, walk on eggshells. But I think there. I mean, if this is possible, there's definitely a space to have these types of friendships and these types of relationships, and for me on my end, the only thing that I don't think I would change anything. The only thing I would say is like if at any point like your husband had one, like it would have been nice to meet
I
him.
would love you to meet him. Like, also, I should say, my husband's a stay-at-home dad, and we don't have family where we live. So oftentimes when I travel, that's why he's not with me. It's because he's watching the girls so that I can do this thing that I've built and done. And sometimes it's sad. Like, I mean, I remember going to New York this year for the Today Show in January, and I would have loved to like have my husband experience that with me, but we didn't have a babysitter. It's just kind of the unfortunate things of when you grow up, or not grow up, when you have kids and you don't have a support system. And so most of the time when I do come to LA, if it's some sort of event, I want to experience it with someone, and someone that I know knows me and cares about me. So that's why Kojo also is usually my plus one.
Yeah, and because I know that your situation at home is solid, it gives me a confidence to be like, okay, I know. But then I'm always like, all right, just making sure, because like where I'm from in the South, like people, like you don't play with people's wives. People lose,
Yeah.
like people lose their lives. Back in Georgia and Tennessee, people lose their
Yeah.
lives, over people's wives. So like,
Hmm.
we know, you know, you don't touch, and
Yeah.
of course you don't mess with anybody's girlfriend, but people know, oh, if that's somebody's wife, mother of their children, oh, you
Yeah.
don't ever touch that, like, so there's just that basic respect. And even if there's no respect, like you want to live, right? So like
Yeah.
you know how to act accordingly, you know.
Yeah. And plus, I be trying, or I secretly be trying to figure out which one of my friends are single that I can hook you up with, so that our friendship doesn't. It's okay.
Let me see what they look like. No, me, I'm gonna be like, I'm too busy, but I still want to see. Please send me the DM. But at the same time, it's weird because I'm like, all right, I'm already like, like you respect me now. So like a
Yeah.
relationship means that you can make mistakes, and then they're like, oh no, you introduced me to this guy Kojo, he's awful, blah blah blah, and you're like, no, he's not awful, and then she's like, oh well, he didn't spend
He
time
might be awful to you.
right. Still send me the let me see what they look like. Let me see what pictures in my head. One reason some partners don't like their person of opposite sex friends.
Ooh.
Oh wow!
Ooh, that's a good one.
And to be honest, this is Pedro. I gotta give you love of the show right here. This is
That's a
probably
good one.
me. In probably past relationships because I didn't know like maybe me 5 years ago, I didn't want to hear about that's your boy bestie. I'm like, no,
Mm,
there's no damn boy besties. Like who what? Because like I know that like I didn't have those boundaries myself. I was working on it, and but also for that situation, there was some truth to what I was saying, like the
yeah.
lives that we were living. Now, if I'm dating someone who's a public figure and she's here and she's there and whatever, then or she's an actor, like a whole
Yeah.
different conversation. Like you have to be comfortable with certain things that the average person probably will never.
Doesn't have to deal with like intimate scenes with like, yeah.
Right, and I don't know if I do
I
that. Maybe, perhaps.
think you could. I think with trust. I think it's easy when we've never been in a situation to say I could never do that. But I think that it's not like you just find yourself in situations and you're like, wow, I can. I think it sort of like gradually like works up to that. Like you might start dating, realize she's an actress, but she hasn't had any intimate scenes. But then you start building the trust, and then she gets like a gig, and she's like, "Hey, I want you to come be on set with me." But like I think that you're like, no, absolutely not.
Mm, it's a learning experience, but it's because I know how territorial we as guys
Mm,
are over
yeah.
our women, and like you have to learn how to realize that people are not a possession.
Yes.
You can be married to somebody for 50, 30, a million years. That person's still not your possession. Like you can say that you belong to them, they belong to you, but like you don't own that person. And
Mm-mm.
sometimes like not saying you could love too much, but sometimes you can kind of love intensely to the point where you don't allow that person to be themselves.
Yeah.
So like that's something to like keep in mind. But like I tell myself that all the time. Like you don't own somebody, you
Yeah.
know. So you have to allow people to do what they want. And there's a lot of people like I get the DMs all the time. There's a lot of folks who are in relationships where they can't really be themselves, and
Mm,
then you're gonna burn out at some point. And
yeah.
if that relationship is gonna work out, it has to work out under different like a different context. You can't keep trying to push that to where it's like, oh, this for who can hang out with today? Like, if that was an argument every time you came back from LA, like, I don't know how you'd be able to do this. It just
Yeah.
was sustainable, you
Yeah.
know?
And instead, my husband's like, man, I keep telling him, I'm like, you and Kojo are going to get along so great. Just
I,
trust me. And he's like, well, when we get a sitter, I'm excited to meet him.
I definitely have to, and that'll probably be like the last. But even the fact that I haven't met him and like we're able to have these conversations is quite impressive because I know that a lot of relationships, and no through no fault of their own, but maybe they're early in the relationship. But a lot of relationships, you can't really do this in the beginning. Like you have to kind of, like y'all have 11 years in, so it
Yeah.
makes sense. But especially in the beginning, it can be kind of dicey when you're trying to like find your footing, and then you
Yeah.
introduce this type of thing in there. You
Oh,
know.
definitely.
Yeah, and let me see what Kenneth says. I have a guy friend who we see as a brother sister where we can literally walk into each other's places without knocking or see each other in a towel, and neither of us will look at each other in a sexual manner. And our significant others are the same way. So Kenneth, respect,
Yeah.
respect, and for me, like I've never done that towel thing, but I do know that like if Candace said that she can do that, I completely believe that. And I think sometimes we'll read something like this and we'll not see Ken or we'll ignore Kendra's name and then we'll think about it from our perspective. And we'll be
Yeah.
like, if I saw a friend of mine towel, could I behave? It's not about if you is that's her
Yeah.
experience, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important because that's my first thought. I'm like, I don't really be hanging out with people with opposites in just a towel.
And
But
if
that's
I'm being like completely honest,
mhm.
for me, it's not even dudes in a towel, it's women in a towel. So like when I like hang out with like my friends that are like girls and like say we're like hanging out and I see that my friend is attractive, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, please don't." So that's why I say like it's perspective and life because being like someone who is bisexual, I I don't want to say I struggle with it more, but like the harder part for me isn't seeing a man in a towel, it's seeing a girl in a towel.
But that could be maybe why it works for you. And I'm
Yeah.
not speaking for all heterosexual
Oh, yeah,
men,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like a good majority of us, if we're
Yeah.
dating somebody who they're bisexual and they're hanging with women and doing whatever, we're like, that's cool. But then when it's like a guy, we're like, hold up, So it's like, I mean, I don't know what's behind there. I don't know what the science is behind there, but that's how a lot
Yeah.
of us act. I can't speak for all straight guys, but a lot of us like, oh, my girl's hanging out with her. Oh, there's a girls' night out, and they're just wearing nothing. Oh, okay, yeah, just,
Mhm.
just having silly, goofy time or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's
And
a
I
guy,
think that that's the trust part too. And not to make the life go a little bit longer, but like I even think about so my husband's very well aware that I'm bisexual. I find men and women attractive. And like the other day we were out at like a restaurant and we were getting some food and like the person ringing us out, she was so beautiful. She was so beautiful. And
what
I'm
did
like trying to order and my husband's like, "Do you know what you want?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was, like, stumbling over my words, and then we go sit down. He was like, "You thought she was beautiful, didn't you?" I was like, "Yeah." I was, like, so nervous to talk to her. She was so beautiful. He's like, "Huh." He's like, "I mean, she's alright." So, like, that's that, like, trust thing. Like, I can even tell, like, I feel it goes back to, like, my husband trusts me so much that I cannot break that. Like, I've been with men that have been had different boundaries or been insecure and like they're like, "Why you look at my friend like that? Oh, you think he cute, huh?" And I'm just like,
make you
how can we deny that if someone in front of us is attractive? Just because someone is attractive in front of us doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go and be with that person, cheat, leave you. And so like the trust that I built with my husband that I can literally be like, "Yeah, she was beautiful." And even with men sometimes I'm like, "Oh, he was kind of hot." And he'll be like, "Yeah, you did have a thing for the alabasters." And I'm like, I know, I did date a lot of white men, but like we can have those honest conversations of
right.
like him being like, I trust you so much that I know that you seeing someone beautiful and being like nervous about that doesn't mean that you love me any less.
Mm,
Doesn't mean that you don't want to be married to me. Doesn't mean that I'm not the one that you want to come home to at night. It's just you have eyes and that's okay. So every relationship's different, but I just say that because that's I can't break that cuz I don't know if I will find that. This to me feels very
it'd be really
rare, and
yeah.
I cannot do anything to break that because I get to wholeheartedly, authentically be me.
Mm. And we'll do a quick water break, and let me see if I see an. Look, this is funny. This is funny. But I will say, I don't know if it's the double standard, but I do think it's just harder for guys. Like it's hard for me to be dating somebody and to be like, oh, that girl's attractive to the girl.
Mm.
I think there's something to be said there.
Yeah.
And not that it needs to be fair or whatever, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it would be weird to be out with my girl and like, oh, this is a nice, you know.
Mhm.
You have to be like, Like it's kind of like when you get like a super fine,
I know,
waitress.
I know that, I know that. Don't look at her eyes. Her eyes are right there. You look at them eyes.
Yeah, don't call me honey. Like I want no issues. I
Yes, my husband can stay with a single girl, by the way. He does have friends that are
Let me get some water real quick for this water break. That's a
he does have women in his life that are single, and it honestly doesn't bother me. And it
wow,
again,
wow.
like I said, it goes back to the trust. And my husband actually has told me when he's like, "Oh man, that girl was pretty," and I'm like, we have different types.
My experience has been so like it's been interesting. Like I'll or maybe this is who I date. Like I'm used to dating a girl, and like I'm walking around, and she's like, "Don't let me catch you looking at the white women." I'm not looking at her. What are you talking about? I'm not looking at her. I'm like, and I'm like, I told you I dated one white girl in the past. And you think I'm looking at every white woman? I'm not looking. I'm looking
Yeah,
straight here. It becomes an argument. I'm looking straight. I'm looking straight. My eyes are closed. I have bad eyesight anyway. This is pure LASIK. I'm like,
the bad eyesight.
Vicky. All right. Real quick, what we do here is we do this. Libby's funny. We do this. The water break. You have some water around you, right?
I do.
Okay, perfect. So the magic word is cheers.
Cheers.
We get some water in because sometimes we forget to drink water. So big cheers.
I love me some water. Water hydrates the body, and it feels very good.
Mm.
I love me some water. Cheers.
Wow. Okay. So all right. Now I think I've answered this question, but this is next level. Don't answer if you don't want to. But could your
Okay.
husband stay with somebody that he slept with before, but it was a long time ago, and they're platonic?
Yes.
Oh, wow, 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 wow,
I
wow.
like I know I'm different. I just want to say that. I
No,
know that I
I
am
respect it.
different. Um
I respect it.
but I trust my husband. And so if
Wow,
I'm being
wow.
okay, hold on a second. My husband is friends again, remembering these are different circumstances. Me and my husband met at work, and he was in a 6-year relationship, and I was dating some other coworkers. And so I have actually slept with one of my husband's friends.
Oh, respect.
And they're still friends. Me and the guy are not friends. It just didn't. It has nothing to do with my husband. We weren't friends when me and my husband got together, and that was something that I remember feeling very nervous when me and my husband were dating because before we started dating, or we were dating, and then before we became official, I'll never forget. I was out of town. It was Thanksgiving, and I was at my mom's house, and he was like, before we like take this any further, I just need to know who you slept with where we work. And I'm like, this man, no, you
Oh,
friends with
wow.
him? I know you know, but I think that he just wanted to test how honest I would be. And I remember feeling very like, okay. And then I told him, and he was like, I appreciate that. And I was like, well, I mean, I know you've been in a 6-year relationship, but have you slept with anyone that we work with? And he was like, no. Um, and I was just like, okay. And literally it's never changed. And it's very interesting because sometimes when we go back home and we all hang out, I feel awkward because I'm just like,
Wow.
ah, y'all still friends.
Wow. This is a remarkable level of trust because, at least on my end, I'd be afraid to, like anybody that I've been with in the past, like I have self control, but like I wouldn't even want to like go around because maybe I'm just a Mickey Ficky because I'd be like, "Hmm." But that's
Mm,
that's probably my ADHD, which is like, how much can I get away with, or how close can I get without? I don't want to do anything. I just want to see, like, so
mm,
like for me, I'd be like, nah, I'm not gonna go there. But the thing I like that you mentioned was the honesty,
yeah,
uh, because I feel like in order to be married, you have to be very honest with yourself and to your
yeah.
partner. And I hate to say it, but I see a lot of people take the step to get married and they're not there. and like the transparency that you all have to look at your partner and to know that they can look you in the eye and they won't lie to you,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah. And I think that's why we do have so much trust is because our relationship literally started out, well, not, it didn't start out that, but as we were dating, like having those like conversations and me not lying and being upfront and honest. I mean, about like that. And also the person was also at our wedding. So it's one of
Wow.
those things where it was like, I think when you're navigating the world, how would I have known that I would have ended up with my husband? Therefore, me telling myself like don't sleep with this person that you work with because you might end up marrying someone else here. My husband was in a 6-year relationship and I was dating this other person and then it didn't work out with the other person and
Okay,
then
makes
my
sense.
husband now he ended up breaking up with his girlfriend. And then I had a Halloween party and I invited him to my Halloween party and his version is different. I say he called me and was like, "Hey, I'm going through a really hard time. I can't come to the party." He's like, "I was at another party." And but literally like the next day at work, he was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry I didn't come to your party. Do you mind if I take you to dinner?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And my friend that worked with us at the time was like, "Shawnee, he's so good for you. You don't see it right now because he's the nice guy, but he is so good for you and you need that in your life." And I remember he was just so different than what I had dated, so nurturing. So, someone who has a lot of trauma around men and childhood trauma, and then you have this person who loves you before you even love yourself. I can't break that.
Wow. And Louis said, I just went to a wedding that I've had sex with the groom. Wow. But like, you know what? Like, the wild reaction that we have is actually like this happens all the time. This is real life. And
Yeah.
I like the fact that we can talk about this because sometimes things are not as big as we make it seem. I'm not saying that people
Yeah.
like go against the boundaries, but things are not as big as we make it seem. And I remember, I think back to one story. A friend of mine, she's a friend now, but no, Libby, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little weird, but weird. Weird doesn't mean bad. Weird
Yeah.
is bad, and different is not bad. And I'll close this because I've taken up too much of your time, Shiny. But I'm thinking back to this one friend of mine. She lives in Boston, right? So we had some vacation in New York, fun vacation, right? Anyway, I thought she was cool, and I wanted to date her, but I kind of forgot about her. I came back to LA and like I got busy. I forgot about her, you know. But I think I checked in, but by the time I checked in, it had been like a couple of months,
Yeah.
and she had like a boyfriend or whatever. And so I go back. She's from Boston. I go back to Boston later for something. Um, hang out with friends, and obviously like she has a boyfriend, so I'm like, "All right, I'm not gonna hit her up." And then she sees I'm in town. She's like, "All right, so like come over, you and your friends." So I was like, "You have a boyfriend?" But like we just went over, we hung out, laughing and kicking, nothing
Yeah.
happened. And I was like, "Oh, okay, so you really I didn't know that was possible because, like, I
Mhm.
think that, oh, if you've done something with somebody, like, you have to, like, they get somebody, you block them or they block you because that's kind of what you see. Like, but you have to respect
Yeah.
that relationship. But when people, and the boundaries were good, we did nothing there because she had somebody. But sometimes maybe we overcomplicate things potentially.
Yeah, and I think it's knowing people's intentions too. Like I think about my friend who had wanted to be with me that we had been friends all through high school and all through college. And then when he was like, "Hey, I want to like be with you." And I was like, "I don't see you like that." So then we cooled off on the friendship. He ended up getting a girlfriend, and then I remember like his girlfriend was very well aware of like who I was, like to the extent of like, yeah, he we were friends when he was pursuing you. And I was like, "Oh, really?" And like we talked about it and that was it. And like I actually talk to his girlfriend more than I talk to him. So I think it's like one of those situations of like knowing people's intentions. His girlfriend has no reason to be threatened by me at all because I don't see him that way, and I want to make sure like that's True. So anytime like I'm friends or I make friends with someone who has a partner, I always try to make sure that I befriend the partner too
Yeah.
in some
Mhm.
capacity because I want the partner to not feel like this is sort of like a one-sided thing. I want them to know like, yes, this is my friend, but because you are in a partnership with my friend, that also makes you my friend too.
Yeah. No, I like that. And it takes away the pressure from having to be so uh like perfect, you know. And this is an all-time story. We're gonna have to hear it one day. But it takes
Wait,
away.
UW? Hold on. University of Wisconsin what? You know I went to UWP and UWM, so
Oh, oh, oh.
I
Oh
don't
my
know if UW
God.
means University of Wisconsin, but yeah, so
Or
small
Washington.
world if it does.
How many UW Washington
Oh,
University?
yeah, there's UW. Okay. I
I
just assume from Wisconsin that
think it's
UW means
Wisconsin.
University of Wisconsin.
Let us know if it's Wisconsin. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah.
But no, this
Yes.
is such a great conversation, and no, I'm happy we can have it because these are things that like we think about these things
Yeah.
and we talk about it in private, but we never talk about it publicly. And especially like you've talked about like the direction that we want to take our brand, and like this is the stuff that gets me excited because I become
Yeah.
people. It's not just mental health. Is not just figuring out what symptoms you have to see what disorder you have if you have one, and then getting meds for it and then going to therapy and that's it. No, mental health is like how we treat each other, how we treat
Mhm.
ourselves, these topics that we talk about, because when you have this pressure to be perfect all the time, you have to fit into some type of cookie cutter box. It's just going to make you more and more anxious. And I know you feel that just by being an influencer and having to like watch how we post, it's not a sustainable way to live. So
Yeah.
talking about some of these topics, this gets me super excited.
Oh.
Washington,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so I think that's the Huskies, not Wisconsin. Yeah,
Oh.
that gets me excited talking about these topics. So
Yeah.
and nobody else in our space is really talking about this. It's kind of like just very professional, and that's cool. Like the professional thing is cool, but the way I learn, like I would watch this over watching like a lecture over like we're gonna talk
Same.
about things that make you feel sad today. You know?
No, I wanna see human experiences because I
Exactly.
feel like that's just how you learn. I love to be a learner. I'm constantly learning. There's so much that I'm taking away from even this conversation of like, like your future girlfriend, how you see the world, and I'm just a constant learner, and I think that if humans were always thinking about how what they can learn from a situation, the world would just be such a better place.
Mhm. No, it definitely would, and I'm excited. I'm grateful that we can have this conversation and have it in a respectful way. The discourse back and forth was amazing. I hope people learn from this. And also, the last thing I'll say is I'm happy that we have this safe space here. And thank you to everybody who,
Yeah.
the people who come in all the time: Libby, Megan, Kendra, Austin. Name's Austin. Everybody who has been in here because it allows us to have these conversations, and also just as therapists, it's dehumanizing when I know you feel this when you can't speak about your experience
Yeah.
because you feel like you have to be shy and a therapist, right?
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, you can like help people with their stuff, but like you can't really speak up because like, oh, you have to keep it together all the time. But we're
Mhm.
just regular people who just went to school for a certain degree, so we can help people out. So I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you to Kojo's community for being so kind and having me in this space. I always say, you don't want to be vulnerable for the intention of just being vulnerable, but you want to be vulnerable in safe spaces that do help people and also allow you to feel safe. So I felt safe here, and I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate this whole community. So once again, to my community, thank you so much. I'll see you on the next live stream. I will get organized for next week. And to Shani, thank you. I appreciate you.
Bye.
Take care, y'all.